Today I'm pre-sprouting my Ranunculus and Anemone Corms, and I'm also starting most of my cool flower seeds. Last year I had great success with Ranunculus on my previous garden in New York City, and I decided that I'm gonna give it a try to a new flower this year too that I've never grown before, which are anemones, and they go very well with most of the cool flowers, and I'm excited to see how they will do in our new garden this year. This is how the Ranunculus corms look like when they're dry, and that's how you will get them when they get shipped to you. It's hard to believe that they transform into these gorgeous flowers. And the anemone corms come to you dried too, but they look a little different, and they turn into these beautiful colorful flowers as well. And both of them prefer to grow and get established while the weather is still cool to cold outside. So today is February 8th. This is a month after I started my Ranunculus last year, but I've moved and I am in a colder region now, and also having a colder winter, so I decided to wait a little bit more. I have already soaked the corms. Ranunculus corms need to be soaked for 3 to 4 hours before starting the pre-sprouting process, which is what we're doing right now. We're going to plant them in trays that I have already filled with potting soil as well. Use some high quality potting soil, and I pre-moistened it with a little bit of water. And the ranunculus are going to pre-sprout inside before I transplant them out to the garden like I did last year too. So they will be in these trays until they emerge from the soil. Then they're going to live under my grow lights for a couple weeks or a few weeks depending on the weather until it's time to get them planted outside. The rule of thumb is you can put them out at the same time as you put your cool flowers, which is about 6 to 8 weeks before your last frost date. I've got some new corms for this season. The varieties that I have are the Italian Elegance Pastello, and on that same series I have the Italian Elegance Salmone. I don't know how to say. And I only have 10 corms of each for these ones because those are supposed to be the bit more fancier ranunculus. Then I have a pastel mix and a rainbow mix, a picote mix, and one that's called Ranunculus Sunset. And these are the ones I got all on sale online during Black Friday sale, I believe. And I'm going to use some of this piece of cardboard here that I have to separate them since I don't have too many of the same variety. So I'll start with this one here, this Elegance Pastello, and I'm just going to put this sticker in here. They can be placed fairly close together. So I'm just going to place them here in the soil. And this can be placed fairly close together, but since I only have 10 of this, I'm gonna put 5 on each line, just so I know what they are and keep them separate. I can do 6, but I will do the other one just in between them. A few. Oh, this one feels a little soft. Oh, but those are so expensive. I'm gonna try anyway and see if it's gonna come up. So that's our first row, and I'm going to separate with this little piece of cardboard here. I put it close together too because I don't want to waste soil or space. I'm gonna cover this with soil at the end too. Now we're gonna move on to the Salmone over here. These corms look a little bit bigger. These corms are feeling quite soft. Doesn't feel that great. I'm a little worried about them, but I hope they're okay. Hope that they're gonna do well. Alright, separate one more time, and I'm gonna then do the same thing with all the other ones. And once I finish the ranunculus, I will start the anemones. These corms look a lot bigger than the first batch. Look at this. There's a bunch of corms together. I could try to separate them, but I think I'm just gonna let them be and hope that they give us more flowers. We'll see. Okay, the ranunculus are all down, and I have a little bit of space in one of the trays, so I'm going to put some anemones in there as well. And that's my first time growing them, but I heard that they grow exactly the same as ranunculus, as I said, so I think it should be fine to put in the same tray. And when you're planting them, just make sure that the pointy side is down. Okay, this one looks like there's two pointy sides, and this is where the flower was. They're much smaller than the ranunculus, so I guess I can fit a lot more. And the varieties of anemones that I'm growing this year are the Mistral plus Rarity. Rarity, this is a hard word for me to say. And the other one is a little bit hard to say too, but it's called Monarch de Cayenne mix. And I'll be honest with you, those are not my favorite colors, the one on the second mix, but I was able to get them for a very good price. So I decided to get it anyway and just see how they will look like in the garden. All right, now that we have them all planted here, I'm just going to cover the top layer with some potting soil, about 1 inch. And I didn't pre-moisten this because the one at the bottom was pretty moist, and with ranunculus can be a little hard sometimes with dealing with rot. And these kind of felt a little soft. I'm feeling a little concerned about this, to be honest. When I grew them before, they were a lot firmer. So I hope that these guys are going to be okay. But again, as I say, I bought this from a new place, and even though the corms look pretty big, I hope they are in good condition or good quality. So we'll see. Let's see how many of them is going to sprout in the next couple weeks. Usually it takes about 2 weeks for them to sprout. Okay, so this tray is ready. I'm gonna do the same thing with this one on this side that has the anemone corms on those as well. Gonna move this to the side and push this one down here. And it's my first time growing anemones, so hopefully they'll do well. These corms, they didn't get as plump as the ranunculus, but I read that that's normal. They are still stay a little wrinkly. And I have more ranunculus actually too, the ones that I saved from my garden last year. I was thinking to start those a little later and plant them more in the landscape instead of on the beds that I have made for cut flowers. So we'll see. I'll decide when to plant those once I see how many of these guys sprout. And I also have some leftover anemone corms that didn't fit there, and I'm just gonna start them in a smaller tray a little later today. Now those are going to live in my grow room. It's recommended that you put them in a place that's about 50 degrees for them to germinate, but I don't have that in our house right now. But before too, when I grew them in the past, I put them in my basement of my previous New York City apartment, and over there it was about in the mid 60s, sometimes even all the way to 70s, because we didn't control the heat in there. And they all did fine. They always sprouted, so I'm hoping they will sprout in our grow room too. The grow room is farther down the house, so actually it doesn't get as warm as here in the main area. So usually around there it hovers between 60 and 65 too, so I think that's going to be just fine for them. Okay, now it's time to start our cool flower seeds, and I'm going to use soil blocking to start them this year. And I'm just going to add the soil here to this tray to pre-moisten it. I have found that with soil blocking, I have to get the soil quite wet to be able to make the blocks to hold. I'm still learning about it, and it's still a bit of a learning curve. The first time I tried it, I had a little bit of trouble with the corners of it. The soil kept falling in there, so I'm trying a different motion. And I'm also pushing a little harder when I put the blocks in the tray to see if I can get the little blocks to form better. And I'm starting lots of cool flower seeds today, so I'm planning to put these blocks as close as I can to see if I can fit 6 in there instead of 5 like I did in the past. And I'm glad to say that I was able to do it. They almost look like they're touching each other. But that's all right, because I want to start as many flowers as I can. I'm gonna go over the varieties with you guys here real quick. And this one, first one over here, it's going to be all dedicated to snapdragons. I have 6 packages here, and each one of these blocks is going to be one of them. So I have the Chantilly Bronze Snapdragon, and then I'm also doing this Chantilly mix with all the colors mixed together, and this has an open face. Then I'm doing one in the double series, which is the Madame Butterfly, and I have the bronze with white one. And then I am also starting the Avignon Apricot 2, which is a group 2 snapdragon, supposed to flower a little later than these guys here. All of these flower early in the season. And then I have a Potomac orange. This is some old seed that I want to use, and also the Monaco orange. Both of these are supposed to be a summer blooming snapdragon to bloom later in the season, and they have very similar color. I might have to combine these two because I'm not sure if I have 20 seeds in this, and if I don't, I'll just make it up the difference with some of this other Monaco orange color here. Then after the snapdragons, I also want to sow in another tray. I'm doing 20 of each of almost everything. I'm going to do the champagne bubbles poppies. I had zero luck with growing them last year, but I'm gonna give it another try this year and hope that I have better luck. The year before, in 2023, I had no experience growing them, but I had beginner's luck and I was able to germinate all the seeds that I grew. I just had a hard time putting them in the garden once they were all grown, but hopefully this time I'll be able to do it again, because I know it can happen inside, since I did it once in 2023. I failed in 2024, and hopefully now in 2025 I'll be able to have them again. Then I'm also starting this Brazilian vervain, which I'm not sure if it's a cool flower, but it takes a very long time to grow. So I'm gonna start them in the mini soil blocks just because it says here to grow about 12 weeks before the last frost date. And last year I tried to grow this and they stayed in the little baby seedling stage forever, in many weeks it seemed like, in my opinion. I'm also growing the elegant salmon clarkia. This one and this one too, I'm planning to do more in the landscape around the pond. The champagne bubbles, the poppies, I'll try to do my cut flower area because they need a bit more maintenance. And the feverfew, I want to try to plant around in the pond and landscape this year too. And I also have this Dalmatian peach foxglove, which is supposed to be a first year flowering foxglove, and the color is just beautiful. So here in the pack it says to sow 10 to 12 weeks before last frost date too, but I started some foxgloves earlier in the season, and they're just huge already, so hopefully they don't get too big, but those are different varieties, so I'm just curious to see the difference between those two. Then I want to start some natives, which I'm going to put probably around the pond too, hoping that they perennialize. I have some yarrow that I had good luck with growing in the past, so I'm doing the Colorado mix. And then I am doing this new one to me. This is a yellow one, Parker's variety, looks very pretty. And I also am doing this double diamond pearly yarrow. This one is a little different, it has a different leaf shape. I grew this during the past two, and the thing was like super resilient, almost impossible to kill, so I want to grow this again and put it around the pond also. Then I have some Rudbeckia. I have saved seed from my own garden last year, so I'm gonna try to germinate those and see how it goes. And I'm also planting the Indian Summer, which I loved last year. It looks so pretty in our garden, and I think it's gonna look very nice around the pond as well. And I really hope this one perennializes. It would be amazing. And last but not least, I have the Sahara Rudbeckia, which I also love, and I have grown them to cut before for cut flowers, but they usually tend to stay a bit short, so I mostly want to grow them for the landscape because they're just so beautiful. And I had very great luck growing them in the past, and especially starting super early. They do very well when transplanted early, even if it's cold outside. And then what else do I have here? The last things I have are some echinacea. I'm gonna do the Cayenne Spirit echinacea, some of the cream echinacea seeds that came from this mix. I planted this mix, but I had limited space, so I planted 2 flowers, 2 seeds, and then they too came the same color, cream, and I loved that color, so I saved seeds from that, and I'm gonna try to plant this and see what's gonna come up this year. But I'm also planning to plant more of the seeds of this mix to see if I can get a different variety of colors. And I only have 3 more here left. I'm going to do some straw flowers that I have saved from my own garden too from last year. This one's cross-pollinated, open pollinated, but I only had pink and white straw flowers last year, so I'm hoping that will be one of those colors. I'm also doing the pincushion flower mix, which I loved last year too. On the past 2 years that I grew them, it's very pretty. I love how whimsical and flowy it is, so I'm doing the mix this time too, so I can have more of it. And the last one here, I have the Phlox Sherry Caramel, which is very pretty, but I have mixed success with growing it. The first year also that I grew in 2023, it did amazing. All the seeds germinated and did good, but then Last year I had horrible germination and just only had a couple plants, but the flower is so pretty I decided to buy a brand new seed pack and try again to see if that would make a difference. So we'll see how it's gonna go this year. I kind of separated them here by size, so the bigger seeds I'm going to start together and the tiny smaller seeds I'm going to start here first in the front. I'm going to be using the same method I did before with the toothpick. It's a little time consuming, so I'm just going to speed up the video, but I'm gonna go ahead and put one seed per block this time and hope that they all germinate. Most of these seeds here are new, so I'm hoping that we're gonna have good germination success. Now that we have gone through the varieties, the next step is to label everything. I'm going to add the labels to the side of the tray. And after I do that, I'm gonna go ahead and start placing all of the seeds. Okay, actually, after I finished labeling those all, I realized that I miscounted and I still have 2 blocks left. And I decided that I'm gonna do stock in there. These 2 over here, the pink one and a white, I think would be good with some early summer and spring colors. Alright guys, I finished and it took me a full hour and 15 minutes to finish these 4 trays. And the smaller seeds are definitely the hardest, the snapdragon and the poppies. The seeds are black and I couldn't tell if I had already put a seed in there or not, so really gotta pay attention when you're doing this. But I finished. I'm gonna go ahead and cover some of them with soil, the bigger ones over here, and then the rest of them with perlite at the end. And then we're gonna do a little spray of water and they're gonna go under my grow lights. Before I put the soil up, I'm going to add a little bit of water. Oh, make sure the seeds are wet, just to activate the seed and start that germination process. I'll do 1 round of water now directly with the soil blocks, and when I cover it with some soil and perlite. Some of them I might not cover it. I read that snapdragons can be left just as is and they will germinate just fine, so maybe I'll leave that be. I'll start with soil here. I used a soil from Joni's. This one I forgot to say in the beginning, so it's an organic mix, and it says here that's also good for soil blocking. Oops, my seeds are moving. But it does have a little bit of bark and stuff inside, so I'm going to lightly cover with soil just to cover some of these huge seeds. And I'm not really worried if I'm covering the sides of the ridges of the soil blocks, I must say. I think it's going to be easy to separate anyway once the plants are grown and the roots are there. So I'm just going to lightly add some soil, but this is my first time that I'm doing this, so hopefully it's gonna be okay. First time that I'm soil blocking, and all of these cool flowers at once. That was a lot, especially because I have to concentrate so much. And when the seeds are black and you can see, it seems a little harder than just doing regular cell trays, but hopefully with time I'll get a bit more used to it. I'm now covering the phlox, which needs darkeners to germinate. So for this one, I want to make sure I put a nice coat so it will get the darkness it needs, or a nice layer of the soil. And get all of these ones on this side as well. This is all the echinacea, and the stalk is at the end. I hope it's okay to add this soil. I'm not sure. You know, I might leave the other ones open. I think I'm just gonna leave as is for the rest that don't need darkness to germinate, or the seeds are not too big and too exposed. I'm actually gonna read a little bit more about each variety before I do it. I started most of this before, but I don't remember from the top of my head. But I'll just do another spritz of water and we're going to be good for the day. Tomorrow I will read about it and then I will do some add some if needed. But I kind of like to see the blocks, so I think it would be nice to kind of see them, you know, all separated. So let's see what happens. If you want to see how I started my cool flowers last year in cell trays, I'm going to link the video over here so you can watch that next. Thank you so much for watching today, and I'll see you next time.